Here we go. So, welcome. Today's Zoom is about 10%, and we call it sometimes a 10% account. I've been introduced to this 10 years ago when I started my Access Consciousness classes and got to know about the tools. And in one of the seminars, as I started Access, one of my issues was money. I was really not doing well when it came to money. That was my issue. One thing I really like has to change. And that's when Dane showed up in my life. He came to Malmö, about 45 minutes from where I live. And I went to a seminar, Right Body for You, and we talked a lot about money. And this next seminar I went to, one of the bigger seminars, was a money class in London with Dane and Gary. And in that, Gary addresses the 10% account. And he says, this is an account to honor yourself. And I was like, what does that mean? So basically it means that we look at money as something that comes into our lives and we have to pay everybody first. Basically anything you have, any expenses, your living, your accommodation. So money comes in and then rolls out and leaves a little bit with you. And with that little bit of rest you have, you pay something. Maybe you would like to buy something you like, or I'm worth it and things like that. And he looked at it and it's like, yeah, but you always come last with money. And I was like, yeah, that's true. And last usually has nothing with me. So I don't have anything. Kind of, that was what I looked at. And he said, what if we change this around? And this is not a tool that is created by Gary. He said, this is a tool that he has seen exists around the world. It has existed for hundreds and hundreds of years. But before, we always paid the 10% to somebody else. It could be the landlord. It could be the church. It could be somebody else that we had to honor. And it was like a deal. And then he looked at, and there's a lot of marketing areas where you pay 5 to 10% to something, like it could be charity or something you paid back or forward to honor something. And one of the things he looked at is how little we honor ourselves. So when he looked at the 10% account, he said, when money shows up in your world, it could be your salary, it could be anything, it can be a gift, it could be money that shows up. First, honor you. So put aside 10% in an account. It can be cash. It could be any way you'd like. And this is an honor account for you. So basically, you're the first person you honor. You're valuable in your life. You care for you first. So when he said all of these things in the beginning, I was like, but I don't really have even to make my expenses work. How should I be setting aside 10% extra? In my world where I was at that time, that was like horrible to hear. And then he said, well, a lot of people will say they cannot afford it. That was me. And they will not choose it. So basically, you will continue to do the same in your life. You will most likely continue having your issues with money. And this is not the tool that solves everything. It's just a different energy showing up in your life that can contribute to you than changing other things. And then he said, there's also the other part of this where you basically choose something else, where you choose to, and I'll set about 10%. 10% is just a figure. You can choose another number. If you go very low, it becomes very interesting because it doesn't necessarily contribute to changing your life. But he says, if you do the 10% and it's not easy, you'll see that you start making more money very quickly if you're willing to have this in your life. You also have to have the willingness to have this part of your life and not as a proving if it works or it doesn't work, because usually we destroy everything we need to prove. And then he was looking at that and I was looking at, well, I've had this issue with money for a couple of years, so I can continue having it. Or I radically do something different. And it might not be super easy the first time I do it, the first couple of months. But what if I chose to do something different? And then he said, when this accumulates per month, because you'll have something in your life, no matter if your income changes or anything changes your life, something is going to grow. Something grows every month. So there's a different energy that you have started instituting in your life, no matter if anything else has changed with money. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So I started, even it wasn't not an easy choice. I did it and I made more money. And I could afford putting away this 10%, even it wasn't the easiest the first 2 months, but then it got easier and easier. And the fun part was me, after 1 or 2 months, I heard myself say, I don't have money, and stopped myself. I was like, that's not true. I cannot keep on saying I don't have money because I do have my 10%. So I'm basically lying to myself. I could say I don't have enough money to afford something, or there's not enough cash for some expenses or something like that. But I cannot say anymore, I don't have money, because that's not true. Even if there's just 10 euros, 100 euros in your 10% account, I still cannot say I don't have money. So this is where you start becoming more accurate in what you say to yourself. And basically, are you willing to catch your lies? And this is one thing I got really interested and intrigued, because Gary said basically everything's in your head to facilitate yourself. So the limitations that you're using all the time, if you catch them and hear them, you can really help yourself in choosing something different if you use that to your advantage and be willing to change it, of course. So I started with these 10%, and I started it in my private life. So basically everything that came into my life, I set aside 10%. And in the beginning, I did it in cash because I had no good relationship to my money. I really saw that I sucked at my relationship basically with my money. So I felt I needed to have more than just a number in the bank account. So I took everything in cash and had it at home and saw it grow. So I really basically needed it very, very clear in my life. And another thing he said, at some point, your limitations that you have made real about money, we never know what amount it is. At some amount that you come with your 10%, your limitations that you have made real basically starts dissolving. They go away because they're not true anymore, because you've created a different financial reality for yourself. And it was also about like have so-called fear or scarcity about money, lack. And I think he mostly talked about lack. And I remember the day that changed, because it was so apparent. And there's been a lot of changes along the years, but it was within a year. I cannot say if it was 8 or 10 or 12 months. I cannot say, but it was after a while. I was sitting there and doing some work, and at some point I could sense my body was totally different. I was like, what happened? I'm so relaxed. There's something totally different. And what I got aware of after asking questions, my second skin, kind of the sense of a second skin that was full of lack, was not there anymore. So I looked at money and saw, oh no, it was like almost like I can take care of myself. I'm caring with money again. Money is allowed to be in my life. So there was this scarcity lack that went away. And he talked about it, but I didn't really know what it meant until I was there. And I'm like, oh, this is a different energy with money now. And then he also asked a lot of questions. What's the purpose of money? So we had to look at the purpose of money. So basically looking at, do I make money to spend it? Or do I create money to also be willing to have money? Am I willing to have money or only have it to spend? So a lot of us are spenders. It comes in and we want to buy, want to afford something. We want to take care of ourselves. We want to make our lives nicer. And we forget that there's a different energy that can contribute a lot to your life, is having money. And having money is one of the tools I was like, wow, it's so beautiful to willing to have money. And this especially, the 10% is an energy of having money. Having money and allowing it to grow, allowing it could grow and allowing it to grow. And we'll talk about a bit when it grows much bigger, what is possible to look at if you want to help your money play with and create things with it. Because that's one of the things I see, that I didn't have an obvious plan what I will do with my 10%. I never had this energy, oh, but if I put away 10%, I can't spend it and it's just going to lay around. That was never my point of view. I was like, I'm so happy I have extra money there. And it was like, it was a nurturing energy that was there. And at some point I had built up substantial amount of money where I could see, it has my back. The money really has my back. And it's not like going to the worst case scenario, but if something would happen, there is money there. And then I started building up another account, a separate account that would have this amount of money that I would require to live really well for 6 months if I can't work. It's something I'd read in a book, and I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense, because I don't have to want to rely on a system that I'm in a good system in Sweden. They do take care of you in some way. But if I look at it, some countries don't have that. But I was like, oh, but am I willing to create that for me? Am I willing to be the person creating the systems that work for me and not rely that another system kicks in, even if I'm in a socialist country? So I was like, that made sense to me, willing to look at that. So I created the second account. where there was this amount of money and I built it up over time. And it was very easy because it was small amounts that started building up. So I could basically, if I can't work for 6 months, I take care of myself. That was the thing I wanted to have. And it's something that was something important for me. So I chose it. And then it was like, oh, this is awesome. And I was always looking at what are the choices I have not made with money that would be very caring and nurturing towards me and my life and my business. And along the way, asking that, and what's energy, space, and consciousness can me, my body be with money? What energy, space, and consciousness can me, my body be nurturing, caring with money, and including money in my life, having money? Because I wasn't, it's so funny because my parents hadn't really had problems with money, but they had never created that I had my own money. There was always money around. But one of the things I saw, I never had experienced creating so much money for me, because it was always, that was something I did have extra jobs, but a certain amount in a business was always the business money. So I could take things from me, but it wasn't necessarily mine. And that was something I saw later on that was a lack in my system, where I then built it up and I was like, oh, I could allow money to be caring and nurturing towards me, but I had never really had it in that way. And I'm also grateful for certain points of views my parents didn't have with money that gave me a lot of possibilities with money. That was really beautiful. So I'm grateful for all of the areas. And along the way with the 10%, I had to look at it a lot because this was my private life. And after, I think within the first year, I even looked, well, this is my life, my entity life. So how is it with my business? Shouldn't my business also have a 10% account? Because if I want to have something that's growing my business all the time, why wouldn't I add that? So my business also got a 10% account. Now I have two businesses. They both have 10% account. And Lisen as a person also have her 10% account, both in her bank and in cash. And it's something that I care for, I nurture, I look at very often. And I also see when I'm not aware of it, how easily the energy starts like almost like contracting. I remember a month that I didn't look at my accounting and looking at it and doing it. And I got really like in this energy of like, I have no clarity. And I have a lot of clients and also colleagues in Access that have done the 10% and then they needed the money. They needed the money for a class or for expenses or for something they created in their life that became a problem. So they needed to add that money. And one of the things I looked at is that it's my own bank. So if I require money, I can borrow it, but it would be the first thing I pay back. I've never ever zeroed my 10% account. I've never ever used it and not paid myself back. It was one of the most like vital energies that I saw was caring so much for me. So I would never put myself in a situation I really needed to use it, spend it. So I always made sure there was other accounts when I was building it up, and I tried not to create more expensive than I could afford. So I was looking at it a lot to build up my business, build up my life from not having any money. And I did borrow quite often. I borrowed from my 10% account, my private, I remember paying a deposit for my car. I did it once I had a month where there was less income. So I used that. So I basically borrowed a certain amount and then 2 months later I had paid it off again. So these are things where I look at making sure, am I willing to have my own bank? But I'm also willing to respect myself enough that I do pay back. Because a lot of people like, oh yeah, I had it, I used it. But then they don't honor themselves of really using. So if I borrow myself to create a possibility, am I willing to pay it back to honor this account? So I honor the account for its purpose, what it's contributing, what it's caring for. So when I put my energy there and also paying it back into the system again, there's an energy of trust, creation, possibilities. And you don't have to have this either. You don't have to be, this is where I see every person can create their own relationship with the 10%. There's no deal, this is like this or like that. And I remember Gary not taking off the VAT. I have 25% VAT. It's not really my money. At some point I was like, no, I'm paying my 10% after the VAT. But that's a choice, a business choice I make that is clear for me. But I always look, is this from lack or from creation? So if I try to make a deal that is from lack, because I have point of view that I don't have enough, I usually don't choose that. I choose at an energy that expands my life but I also look at the business. Okay, does this make sense for me to my business? But I look from what energy I'm choosing from. Can you speak more about the technical part of having that 10% in your business? Yes, if I understand correctly the question. So basically, in my business, let's say when I started, because I only had a one-person business when I started, I have different accounts. So in Sweden, for example, you need a separate account for your business. You're not allowed to put it into your private account. People do it, but that's legally not okay. So you open a business account. In that account in your business, you can then have extra accounts added to it. And these extra accounts added to it, I have one that's called 10%, but it's called, to see, in one business, it's called Fortune account. And another one, it's called Money Magic, I think. I'd have to look because I put all my accounts have different names. So then I also have, in my first company, I have 4 accounts. One is my in and out. Then it's my 10%. Then it's my taxes that I start putting away all the time. And then I have a creation account. And my creation account, it's called Mega Creation in the first company. And that's one of my business classes, Mega Creation. So it's basically, it became an account where I put a little money every month that is for new creations. So if I had a new idea, I want there to be money to be able to invest. So it's not from lack, or I want there to be money to allowed to invest. And even if it doesn't work out, it's okay with my business can still roll and have fun and work and all that. My first investment in my jewelry business was for my 10%. I didn't have the Mega Creation account up enough money in it, but I did, from one day to another, I started buying jewelry. I was in a class. Gary had poked me for years about this. He knew I came from an antique business from my parents, and poked me with that a lot. And then I was in a business call with the Bowmans, and they talked about things that were super easy for you, that are so easy you ignore it. And I heard myself, yeah, jewelry is easy, but everybody could do that. And I was like, did I really hear myself say that? That's freaking hilarious. And the next day I started my business. And then I can say how grateful I am this 10% account existed, because I didn't have to see if my business could afford choosing this. So I had an amount in my 10% account that I could directly just transfer and use and to invest. And I was like, this is geniusly built up over years, where I say, wow, I'd never thought this would be. When I started my 10% account, I never saw that these were the possibilities that I might be creating for the future. I saw that it was a good, I saw the logical parts of it. I also thought that energetically something growing that also creates a different energy towards me, because something is constantly growing. So I get aware of that. I see that. So every month I do my accounting. But I also can do, like, whenever a client pays me, I can see that amount and then I put the 10% over there. So it was very different. For my class, I had in my class accounting Google Docs. I have everything in there, and I also have a formula for my 10% in there. Or I do it per hand. That's very easy. But I always do it after every class, after a session. Now I do more overview of the month, because I have a different accounting, so it's easy for me to do that. But this is where everybody has to look where it works for you. And then I transfer my salary, and I put it away 10% in my private personal 10% account as well. And there I also have at least 3 accounts. I love having accounts. In Sweden, they're like, why do you need another one? Because I do. And sometimes they try to stop me, because when I open my LLC, that's called AB Aktiebolag in Sweden, they give you a certain amount of accounts. And I was like, I need another one. And the first Aktiebolag I opened was with Jonas together. And they tried to restrict us on how many we had. And we're like, can we pay for more? Like, they just wanted to restrict us. And the second guy I had that when I opened my personal second company, he didn't have that energy at all. He had a lot of fun with it. So I got my accounts directly, sub-accounts. And I could add more if I wanted to, because they had no problems with that. But I was also having a bigger business, a larger business, and they liked the numbers. So they're more open for that whenever your business is making them money, of course. But that's where I am with the 10%. And it has created a lot of possibilities in my life, a lot of them. But I've always honored my 10% and given it the credit it has created in my life. So it is a bank. I have my own bank in the way that I can borrow and pay back. I also can invest, but I only invest in areas I know there will be profit, never in anything that is riskful. Then I would take my mega creation account and do that, because that would be more like play money in business. But my 10%, for example, I can invest in jewelry because I know a lot there. So if you have something else you want to invest in, that would be really a great area. But then also, again, it is up to you to choose. So you have a roughly awareness about the 10%, how it works and why we do it and all that. And then from my personal thing, it's your creation. Look at what it would like to do with you or for you. What would you like to be creating with it? How does your 10% look like? So this is where I was like, there is no squared rules of this. This is a way of creating a different life, a way of creating something different for your business and for your private life. But then you have to be willing to look at what's fun for you. What would work? Am I choosing now from lack or from creating more? Because anytime where I'm going to lack, I usually, like, I'm trying to save money. I have a point of view. I don't have enough. I never choose from that energy anymore. I know that doesn't work. I had a month, like last month, where my income went down a little bit, and I could see it triggering points of views that we usually have in this world. And every time I heard it, I'm like, no, that's not my reality. The cash flow is different last month. Okay. It does not have to affect my points of views about money, not at all. But I can almost hear them. You become like a sponge, a magnet to them. And I was like, really? This is what's happening? I was like, I hadn't had it for quite a while. So I was like, this is really, really funny that I start having some points of views about lack. And I was like, this is not my world and my reality. And the funny part, this was August. I don't remember. I said maybe last month, August. September became one of my best months in this year. Because I stopped every time a point of view about lack showed up, I stopped myself. I stopped, and pot and changed. Because it's not my reality, but they can flow in and out. They can come there, but it doesn't have to be my world. It doesn't have to be my reality, but it's up to me to change. I'm going to have to read here. I might be a bit ignorant in this area, but could you give an example on it? Like for an invoice of 100, would you take the 10% up before taxes or after? So taxes is not relevant to the 10%. I look if I want to take away the VAT. So in Europe, VAT can be quite high, up to 20, well, 5 is here in Sweden. Some even have 27, I think. And most countries are around 20 something. So this is not taxes, because taxes you pay later in the year, right? So I only look at, if I look at 100, I in the beginning took away 10 directly. I didn't care about the VAT because I knew this is an energy in my life I want to change, dot. When it became bigger amounts, 25% of that is going to the tax authorities, to the country. So it's not my money. So if I put a price on something, that is something, it's just a part of my deal, but it wasn't mine. So then I started putting away the 25%. Backwards counting, it's 20. So if I had 100 euros, it's 20 for the VAT, the sales taxes in other countries. And then I would, from the 80, I would put 10%. I would put away 8. But this was when larger amounts. Yeah. Thank you, Selena. You can ask all of these questions. I like you asking me this, because in the beginning, I definitely just put away 10 euros to make it simple, easy, not fuck with myself, and just make clear. When it got larger amounts, I looked at it a little bit more. And then at some point I didn't care again. So I've been changing and choosing along the way. And this is where you have to look at it, what works for you. It's definitely a personal choice, dot. There's no right and there's no wrong. Just look at the energy where you're trying to not put away as much. If you're trying to save the amount or make it a little smaller, because a lot of people react to the 10%. And I was like, but what if you loved it? So I did, in the beginning, I think I only chose what was uncomfortable. I chose the higher amounts. I chose everything. And I wanted the 10% to really go quickly. And then if it didn't work, because I looked along the month. So I wasn't waiting to the end of my month and see if the month worked. I was mostly looking like weekly on my business. And then if I see, oh, this is not adding up, hey, what can I add? Can I have some more sessions? Can I do something? What offer can I create? So I was more like, how can I make more money roll in? Because I don't want to stop having my 10% on the whole amount. So I played with my insane limitations to create more. Next question. I spent all my money from the 10% mine, not business. It's hard for me to give back as much as I took. Should I give them away or start from zero? Should I give them away? I don't understand if I want to give them away. That I don't understand. Okay, so it would be really interesting if you look at this. Okay, you have 10% and you borrow from it. For me, borrowing means you pay back. but this is where you have to get there what works for you. And if you want to start from zero now because you have a different awareness, do that. And let go of every choice you've made and where you decided you made a wrong or bad choice. Because if you bring that along, it's like destroy and uncreate your relationship to everything that was yesterday. If you bring it along, that energy has a charge. And then, oh, you failed. Oh, it didn't work out. If you bring that along to the new choice, that's not fair. It's not fair to the new choice. So you have to let it go 100%, or you make up a deal, or you do something. So always look that your energy is expansive towards the 10% account. So if we would clean everybody that spent all your 10% account, what if you were willing to destroy and create your relationship, your choices, your conclusions, your judgments about the 10% and about everything you have created or not created with the 10% so far? So everything that is can be destroyed and created. Good and bad, right and wrong, put and pock, all 9 shorts, boys and beyonds. And I would really work with a clearing statement. And there's something, if you are not in access, because I know there's some people that are not in access here. So if there is a clearing statement, good and bad, right and wrong, pot and pock, all 9 shorts, boys and beyonds. And if you need more information, you can just address me directly. So basically it helps you clear your bottom line points of views that you're stuck in, that you should bring along, that you react from, that you have something that is charged. And when you're willing to ask questions and decharge them kind of thing, then you have a better way of creating from now. And that I would definitely do. So if you're from today on, if you're like, okay, that was the shit that happened, fine. It's hard for me to give back as much as I took. I would really look at that point of view, just from a curiosity of a point of view. And why would it be hard? What if it was easy? So this is where we decide a point of view, we get stuck there. But what if it was super easy to pay it back in 6 months? What if you allowed there to be more money showing up so you can pay it off with ease? But you don't have to. You can do like, whoop, clean sheet and start today. But start also honoring you and make the 10% your priority for you. Not because I said it, not because Access Consciousness or Gary Douglas or it's in a manual. Don't do that, because that often does not work. It has to be a choice from you that you honor towards you. What about using 10% for travel that is light for generating, creating more now in the future? What is your answer? And how about creating a 10% with antiques and jewelry? Is it about engaging with others outside of your comfort zone? So any travel expenses for me is travel expenses. I do not pay anything, even if it generates more, with my 10%. No, that's an expense of my life or my business. So then I would put it in as an expense in my business. If I travel to an auction house, for example, to invest, I could be investing my 10%, but I would never use my 10% for the traveling. That's my business or my private expenses, but not my 10%. It's not, and this is, if you like doing it, do it. It's up to you, but I would not. Because if I have an expense because I buy a jewelry that I might make more money in the future, that's the investment. The travel is a cost for me, but that's from my perspective of business. My business needs to be able to finance my costs of me traveling, living, eating, sleeping, everything. So my business has to have a possibility. So I don't try to, oh, I have money there, so I'll use it there. I never try to do that. No, and I also look at if I can't afford it, why would I choose it now then? I could choose to do this in the future then. And yes, a lot of people do invest their 10% in antique and jewelry, and also be aware to know something about it. Because just because you go and buy an antique, it doesn't mean that you're making a great deal. It could be. and be willing to look who's selling it and what are the deals. So also start, if you like an area, so exactly, a lot of people access like investing in jewelry. I think it's really awesome. Start educating yourself, start reading, start learning a bit, so you kind of know a little bit, and ask people about it. It's anything I engage myself into. Like I, for example, know very little about the stock market, and I'm starting to look into that. So I start asking some questions, but I'm not very engaged in it. So it's not moving very quickly. But for me, for example, my jewelry business is growing. So I'm investing a lot more time in my jewelry knowledge and building that up, because that's something I'm learning a lot. I like it, engage. It makes me super happy. But that's also part of my business. So it's not relevant anymore to my 10%. But I can say private, Lisen does put 10% into jewelry because I like it. And I grew up a little bit with that too. My parents invested in jewelry to have for later as an extra pension payout, something. And it's beautiful. I like that energy, not from lack, but I do like investing in things that I then also can use and have them, and they're pretty and I like it. So it's something I absolutely do. And I also do it in antiques. So I'm furnishing, for example, this home, and I do pay for my private money and some for my 10%. Oh, sorry, guys. I'll call later. But this is where you get to look at it. But look if you're trying to use your 10% to pay for expenses or to invest in the future of something you really have something for that in that moment. And it can be different kinds of investment as well. You're also welcome to unmute and ask directly questions. I do love your writing here. It's getting very clear and it's very fun. So what else do you guys have? Do you guys all have a 10% account? Do you like playing with it? Do you ask it questions? Do you talk to it? Do you nurture it? Do you care for it? Do you make sure it's in a beautiful, I don't know, box envelope? Do you count it? What do you do with it? What makes it fun for you to have your 10% account? So what questions are you asking your 10% account? So for me, money is an entity. For me, it's energy, it's awareness, it's consciousness in action. So money, I'll just bring some so we can talk to it. So here we have some money. And this is why I started with cash, because I needed to see it. A figure in the bank was like a number, and the number was so small, so it was like, and every time I opened up, I didn't really like what I was seeing because I didn't have enough and all that. So I was like, oh, that doesn't work. I still need to change the points of views about my bank accounts. But then when this grew, it could all just be like very little in the beginning, no? I was always like having it like, hey, I said hi to my money all the time. I'm like, hello. And this is so funny. Anytime money comes into my life, if somebody pays for a class or anything, it's like, hey, thank you for showing up. Thanks so much. I love you. I adore you. I do kiss them. Oh God, that was lipstick on. Well. And then I had like every day, I looked at it in the beginning. I really asked like, hey, what would it take for you guys to generate more? What energy, space, and consciousness can me and my body be with my 10% creating even more? And guys, can you really, because I was looking at, okay, I was always looking at my energy and the energy of the money. So what did I allow this to create? And I was looking at my points of views I had about it, because in the beginning it was just like building up something for safety and security, and then it started generating. And when it became this space of generating, it became more playful. But I did ask it, I gave it like jobs. Hey, can you guys I pulled in energy. Can you guys pull in your friends and see what else is possible? So anywhere I have points of views about money, would you guys be willing to show me? Make it super clear to me. So I gave my money facilitating rights towards me. And it could show up in any different way. Like it was so funny. But it also showed me an energy when it was bored. It came to a day where I was looking at my money. I had it in a beautiful box and I was counting it. And I was like, oh, there's no energy here. I put it away again. I was like, That's weird. And then I got aware, oh, wow, it doesn't have a job anymore. It's just laying around. And that's when I started asking, what else can I create and generate with the money, with my 10%? What could you guys do? And within a couple of weeks, my jewelry business was rolling. And that was one energy it started contributing, creating with. So I don't really know what it will create, but I always ask it to create more and generate more of its friends, more money into my life, more money into my business so I can set aside and grow this. And beyond this, it's not only my 10% I want to grow. I want to grow my whole wealth, my whole business, my whole income. So all of these parts. But it's a vital energy that I just talk to as my friends. But they're my business partners too. So I was like, hey guys, can we choose something else? And I have different currencies also. So I like playing with currencies, and I often also trade within my bank, my currencies, if I'm going to different countries. If I need to exchange money, say I'm going to America and my 10% has dollars and I don't personally, I would exchange them with the exchange rate. And so sometimes my 10% makes more money. And that's fun for me. It's fun for me. So anything that's fun adds to the energy what I'm creating and expanding. And I know. So I ask it to create more. I ask it to facilitate and make super clear what my points of views are. I also ask it, what else kind of businesses can we start instigating, start creating with, start engaging with? So for example, now I've started asking for more businesses to show up in my life in this world about products that I like, that I could be reselling and investing in different businesses and all that, because I have a little bit of money now. So I was like, oh, where can I do and what can I create? It doesn't mean that it has to be my 10%, but I do give my 10% much more jobs. And it's so funny because when I look at, like get aware of my 10% or connect with it, it has an energy of abundance. If I look at my business and money, it has a job to have the business up running. So I was like, oh, my 10% has such an abundance energy. It basically is my best business partner because it doesn't buy into any points of views of lack at all. The money doesn't really, only what I impose on it. I can impose a lot of points of views on money. And what if I didn't? So this is one thing I said. It's like, if you were in the call, I don't know if you were in the last call with the Bomas, they did one about fortune. That was really amazing also for me to look at, because I'm really good at having a number, like up for a class or for a business or for a month. And I generate usually that amount. But what a limitation. And I was like, even if the limitation is really great, it's still a freaking limitation. I was like, oh, and I did it again, but it was a really great limitation last month. We're in October, it was September. So I was like, what can I create beyond the numbers that I'm really, really good at creating? What can be beyond? What can arrive into my life if I go beyond all the numbers I've decided that I can create? Because I get awareness about a certain amount of number and then I start asking for that to show up. And then ideas pop and all that. And it usually ends up very close to that number. And I was like, oh, what else is possible? What else is possible if I'm willing to create and generate with the most abundance energy I can possibly be and choose, and any limitation that shows up, am I willing to destroy and create that energy every time it shows up? Am I willing to be engaged with my 10%, talk with it, have a normal conversation? Because I talk with the universe and with my money as if I'm talking with you guys. Normal language. And then sometimes I ask questions that are like access questions and clearings and all that, definitely. But I often look at what energy I'm willing to be. So if I have a lack, like, I don't have enough, or I keep having problems when I look at money, I was like, oh, Lisa, what's your reality about money? Oh, I can create it at any time. There's always enough. There's always lots of money. So there's not a lack of creation in my world. It's just a willingness to ask for it and be it. Before I had the point of view, I had to work hard to create money. And I was like, oh, that's not okay. And I could see how much money and wealth and possibilities I had stopped and limited in my life because I had to prove that I work hard. I wasn't allowing myself it just to show up because it's easy. What to ask when you have a business partner who considers the 10% as a nonsense? Oh, this is fun. This is really fun. But who is doing the 10%? Would be my first question. One second. So does your business partner need to do the 10%? Or could you be doing the 10% on your part? It's like having a husband. Like, do you need to have the husband engage in the 10%? Or can you do it for the part that is yours? Let's see what it says. It's about my husband, the husband partner. So what's really your question there? Because you could then start doing it on your private parts, or you would ask if it's allowed to do something that is different. You need to have a conversation and also explain why you'd like to have it. Private it is, it's in business not. Okay, so do you get your own salary or you have a joint salary? You get your own salary. Well, then it's your choice. You can just take it out of your account and put it in an envelope in a box, or you can have a separate account that is yours. And you just, hey, I'm doing this to honor myself and to build up more money. You know, I don't know what conversation or what you can tell them. Like sometimes they want to hear that you're more responsible. I want to be more responsible with my money so I don't spend it all. So I'm putting aside 10% to make growth so we have more capital in our private blah, 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 blah. You could do that. You can do a lot of things, and most partners are really not against it if you have a good explanation why you're doing it. If you impose it on the partner, they also have to do it. I don't think that really usually works if you don't have a conversation that makes sense to them. I've given this tools to hundreds of people, like a lot of people that I meet up on the street, even and all that, and a lot of people start. It depends if they continue because they like doing it for themselves, or they do it because it made sense when they started, but then they don't continue looking at it. But I mean, it usually, most people like the word saving, but I don't like, that's not for me. 10% is definitely not a saving account. If I needed to have a saving account, I would add that too. I don't have, this is not an account that I use or money I use because my car broke down, or I have a problem with the house. You'd have to have a different account that is about your life. Like, so I have accounted in my budget, if you would like to say that, expenses. Like if I have a fee, like driving fees or parking fees, or you go to the dentist or whatever, I have put that aside. So there's always money for that and not like a surprise. Oh my God, today I got a ticket from Germany. 7 pages to Sweden, half of it's translated to Swedish for €25 fee. And I was like, I've gotten that for €5 too. It's so funny. I've accumulated more fees than lately about driving, but it's in Germany all the time. But I'm really happy because they're so low. Pot and back. I should not add more of those. But it's very. If it was in Sweden or Denmark, it would be a little zero on it at least, kind of thing. But it's so funny to see that, because when I get it, I'm like, well, that amount is totally fine. I don't even have to blink. But 7 pages? And it's so funny because it's the area that sends it. And I've got it from different areas where there's 1 or 2 pages. There's like 7 pages. They did an effort for me to have all the papers. In case I don't want to accept it, I can reply and deny it and blah, 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 blah. So it's really funny. But these are things that when I look at money, I'm willing to look what it costs to live my life. And I have an expensive dog and I have a horse and all those things. So they're all included in that. But my 10% I set aside first, then I'll allocate money. But what gift can you be to yourself if you're willing to create this? Because you don't even know if you will be with your partner the rest of your life. So what would you build up a 10%? And like, this is one thing I see when relationships break up and they had a joint account. Often there's this lack and they didn't really build up a financial situation if they're not rich, because there's a different energy, but then there's different fights as well, where there is an energy where you haven't honored both the same, and especially if one works more than the other, there's a less honoring energy, and you just make it work kind of thing, instead of looking at your financial situation today and look at the future you'd like to create, no matter if the person next to you is there or not. I mean, I don't want to say it, but sometimes they also die. And then you get the whole money. But still, if you're building up something that makes you more prosperous, it makes it you have an amount of money where it has your back, where you create having your own back with money. It's, I can just say it's very nurturing. It's very, very nurturing. It's very caring. I've done it in relationship as well, and I'm very grateful. I would have done even more when I look afterwards, but it was really, really good. And I was like, you never at really zero and have to fight for things. It's very different. So what if you were willing to create a financial situation, a financial reality now for the future? And it's not about worst case scenario or something bad happening. It's about creating wealth. It's about creating something that generates more. It's about your abundance, about letting go of your lack and creating something that is really fun to live with. And you know there's always money there. You know there's always money. And it's, I can say, I've done it 10 years. After 3, 4, 5 years, I was absolutely surprised, astonished how much money I had generated. And I can tell you, I would never really have known how much money I generated if I hadn't had the 10% and it had been accurate. I was absolutely surprised and shocked. I was like, that amount? Freaking amazing. And it was not only like from my business, it was gifts, it was things that showed up. And I was like, this is amazing. But it's so easy to deny what you generate and create because you have a point of view that you're not good enough or didn't do enough or something. I even now that I'm switching accountant, I had to look at all my business things, and we were talking about that, and it was an amazing conversation because I got so clear what really amazing things I've been creating in the last 2 years. And I was like, this is really cool. And I had to sit there and acknowledge that. He kind of acknowledged it, even if he had no clue and there was no comparison. But I was like, this is a good business. It's doing good profit and all that. And he acknowledged that. And I was sitting there, yeah, I never really look at that. I just keep on creating more. And acknowledging that was something where I'm like, oh, this is really good. Thank you, Lisen. You're really creating awesome stuff. So just a moment to acknowledge where you are, giving yourself a bit of credit, what you have created, where you are, and not, but I haven't done that. I haven't done that. I haven't done, or I messed up my 10%. So that's not acknowledging at all. It's really dismissing yourself where you are. It does not matter. I cannot say if I acknowledged more in the first year, my life would have been absolutely easier. But it was one energy I absolutely avoided for years to acknowledge anything with myself. It was like a plague, because then I would be arrogant or I would be too much. I was being so Swedish and more than that. And I was like, there is a sense of just like resting in yourself, in the amazingness you're being at the moment. And it doesn't, the numbers don't count. And just be willing to look how much you changed, what points of views have changed, and maybe you have generated more money. And then look at that and it's like, hey, this is awesome. It's definitely not enough. But then you don't have to judge that. You don't have it from lack. You have it from like, oh, this is my awareness. I'd like to have a different life. But if I hadn't chosen that 10 years ago, I'm not sure it had been this amazing. And the acknowledgement and the awareness from it, the 10% has constantly to also talk back. I talk to energies, and it might also have helped a lot because I talk to my dog and she answers, and energetically she has trained me to receive her. So everything has awareness, everything. And I am grateful that things are allowed to talk to me and I receive that. And it's weird for other people, but I don't really care. I just like it. And I love money. I love cash. Cash is just like, and then I was like in Germany just now. I came back yesterday. And then it's like, oh, this is the first time I have the different ones. Because these are the old ones. Sorry, they're falling down. And these are the new ones. And I was like, oh, they're so pretty. And I was like, oh God, I get to have you in my life now. So this is where I just play with them. I have fun with them. I have them. Oh, somebody said, it was so funny. Someone's like, man, you don't have your money on your table, seeing it all the time. It was some conversation. I looked at them, yes, I do. They often sit on my table next to me when I'm working. So I can have them ordered in one pile and I can have them ordered. And it's so funny because I do it different than most people. It was so funny because there was a statement they said, but you don't do that. And I was like, I do. But this is where I see my relationship with money has been constant question. And I was joking this morning with myself. And I was like, I have to tell people if I ever die, they should definitely look in the mattress and the pillows and all that. If I put cash in there, I might become one of those. And I was like, that's fun for me. And it wasn't that it is like that, but I bought like safety boxes, the ones that you have in the vaults. I bought 2 of those for my home. I'm like, you don't know, you know where to find the things. But it's money. And today, I know when I was traveling, I'd put some of my cash in one of the bags where I have vitamins and things like that. I don't really know why I did that. But when I opened it today and unpacked, I was like, oh, hello. And it's just like, hi. And I was like, oh, you're here? I thought I had put everything in one place, but I hadn't. So this is the fun part where how much fun can you have with money, and what is your reaction with money when you see it? And when you see something, you get aware of it. What if you allow that to be a facilitation? So if you see you're acting negatively or in a not so good way, what if you use that possibility like, oh, let's change that. That was not the energy I wanted to be with you, my friend. And is money allowed to be your best friend? Is money allowed to be a lover? And I remember Gary saying this in the beginning, to make your money a lover. I'm like, I thought he was kind of nuts. But then I've seen the energy where it's orgasmic for my body. I breathe it. Like when I breathe money, smell money, I have a little bit of cold time, but it's like I still can read. I can smell if it's a dollar, a euro, or some other currencies. I can't do all the currencies, but several currencies. If I only sniff it a little bit, I know what currency it is. And it's this joy for my body. And if you've done money workbook, the money workbook is awesome to work through with your points of views about money and be willing to receive money. And I've done that several times. I've done lots of classes in them. I have had a lot of fun seeing my points of views and reactions, because when I get aware of them, it's not about defending them or explaining them. It's just like, oh, thank you. That was a point of view, reactions or something. Let's change that, because I don't need to have them. And since I worked a lot with that, it's like this joyful energy that shows up in my life, and I just want to have more, and then I ask for more, and then I ask for more, and it shows up, and it shows up, and I was like, how much can I ask for? And where is you always have kind of some limits where you have put in like that amount, and that I have to be aware of, because when I reach that unconsciously, if I reach it unconsciously, I often destroy afterwards, so I have less. And I was like, that doesn't work for me, but I do it to fit in. So everywhere we try to fit in the world of money or no money, can we destroy and uncreate that? Good and bad, right and wrong, put and fuck, all 9 shorts, boys and beyonds. So what reality with money are you willing to create? And are you willing to allow money to contribute to you, money to create with you? Are you willing to allow the money to be a co-creator, a business partner? Are you allowed to, is it allowed to show up in your world with total ease? And this is when I ask these questions, I really go and just sense the energy if I'm honest or not with myself. Because you can only change where you're honest and accurate with the energy you're being. But if you go and lie or diminish that, it doesn't really work, because then you can't really change your life or create your life from a lie. Because most people are like, yeah, and then nothing changes. So what change can you be? What can you create with money that you haven't acknowledged? And you're willing to ask it to contribute, create, help you, give it a job, facilitate you, play with you, and whatever else is possible for you, because you have the possibility to choose that. I often ask it a lot to facilitate. Show me wherever I have a point of view. Show me blah, 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 blah. So I ask it, I give it that right. And then it just sneaks in sometimes. I'm like, oh, that's an energy. Oh God, thank you. So it's really funny. I lost my wallet, or it was stolen. I don't know. And there was a substantial amount of money. We don't necessarily know if it was 1,000 or 1,500 euros in it there. And then cards and a lot of other things. And I don't remember how many currencies were in there either. And I had a moment of like, shit. And the money was like, yeah, okay. Bummer that I put in more in my wallet last day. I usually fill up my wallet because I want to have a lot of money in my wallet. And then I'm like, oh, maybe I'm paying off debts from another lifetime. That would be okay. Hopefully they're having a great time. I wanted my wallet back with my cards, and there was different things that were in there. and it's not coming back. It was a Prada one. I was like, what did I even expect that one to show up again? And I really love my Prada wallet. And until now, I haven't bought a new wallet because I was like, should I buy another Prada wallet or another wallet or something else? I was like, still in the question what to do with that. But I really knew, and this was the month where I was making less money, of course, or in the beginning, or well, it was the beginning of a great month, but in that moment, I had to choose something else again. I had to choose if this is my reality that will have an impact on my world or not. Because it's super easy to, when you have a bad situation thing, that you start making even more real. So I already started having some point of views about lack, and that hits you. It's so easy to buy into it in that moment. I had a lot of interesting things with all my cards and driving license. I got it the same day I drove to Germany. There was like a lot of practical things that were very annoying to me. But the rest I challenged, and every point of view that I was like, this is a great facilitation, because if I have the money or not, does that make a big impact on my life? No. Would I love to have the money? Yes. Will it show up? Yeah, I don't believe so. So what glorious adventures can that money have? And what if it created 10 times more money in my life? And I've already done this once when some money got lost many years ago, and the next day it showed up 10 times more. The funny part is, since I started, what contribution is this to my life that I'm not getting? What's right about this I'm not getting? Really, what contribution is this? And then the 10 times more, the energy went like, and I was like, oh, from this space, I can create anything. And September became really amazing income month. And I was like, and unexpected in different areas. I'm like, this is cool. But that's the energy you're willing to be. And I really had to work with myself. I really had to be aware. I really had to be aware of everything I bought into, anything that shows up, and all of these things. I had a lot of excuses. I've done good. That is absolutely amazing. When you choose that, it's done. You have the most amazing space to create from. Because anything that you're like, hey, now it's a new world. Now I'm changing this. But you have to start instituting something different also, and willing to listen to yourself when you start making your limitations real again, because they're not real. They're not real. They're definitely not real. But this world or the society wants you to have lack, because then you're also dependent on all the systems. So I want to create, or what I am creating is being not dependent on any systems, but using any system to my advantage. So I want to create that I'm abundance and I don't need them in case, and I don't have to create drama because if they don't work out, but I'm willing to use them all. So I'm very grateful for you on all, and I know quite a few will be listening afterwards on this. And what if we created a different reality with money? Because I know it's possible. I did it. It's not as rocket science. It was not that I was the most intelligent person on the earth. I was willing to do it. I was willing to do it over a long time, a 10-year period now, and I'm just freaking grateful. And I'm going to continue. And I'm also looking at what else I can create with money, what else, because then when I start instituting new stuff, the money shows up for that. But if I don't do it, it just kind of like moves forward in the same way. And I was like, no, it's time for new things. It's time for much more. And this is where I want to invest in other companies. I want to do other things. I want to be part of other things that I haven't chosen because I've decided, I don't know, I have a facilitator's business, or I have a jewelry business, or, but you put yourself in boxes. And what if I added a couple more companies and kept on doing everything I like doing and doing more? So, and it doesn't have to mean it takes more time. It can just be more fun. So what reality would you like to create, and how much fun are you willing to have, and how much out of control are you willing to allow yourself to be? And be willing to allow people to judge you. That might be a totally different call about judgments and money. I adore these beautiful thingies, and what else can we create and if we allow them to be part of our lives? Thank you, everybody. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'll send out the recordings very soon, and have fun. And if you have any questions or anything, you can always reach out to me. Have a beautiful evening. Bye.